do that. We do want you to ask as many questions as you have. But last time we just had a lot of one person asking all the questions and interrupting and things like that. And I just think it'll be better if we are a little more orderly about it. So write your questions down, and then after the presentation, we'll go Q&A as long as we need to. And I don't know if we'll have EJ do it or myself, but when you have a question, raise your hand. We'll kind of call on people just so there's not, you know, continued questions from the same person all the time. I do want to say just one thing. This is, I guess it's kind of obvious. It's sort of a hot button issue and lots of people have strong feelings about it, and we totally get it. But I do really believe that in the midst of asking all the questions we need to ask as a township, I would encourage us to be civil and fair and nice to these guys. They're people too, just like we are. And they don't have to be here, and I'll tell you why that's true in a minute. But they've flown in a couple times. EJ's from Pennsylvania. I don't know where Sands is from.
I'm over in Dallas.
Dallas, you sound like you had a southern accent. Peter,
Maryland.
Maryland. Okay, so they're coming in from all over the country to answer questions. And the reason that we're here right now is some of you may know this, but last year our state legislature passed a law called PA 233. It was signed by our governor, and essentially you should look up that Public Act 233 and get familiar with what it is, because that's what our elected officials voted into place. So ultimately, if you really don't like this project, which hopefully you learn enough about it that you might not hate it, but it's from the state level. And the reason it's rolling out this way is that Public Act 233 essentially lets the state write ordinances for these types of renewable energy projects. And it takes away the zoning ordinance writing per se, or could, from the local townships. And Public Act 233 will go into effect this November. And at that point, any project that the state, well, essentially the state's ordinances that they wrote for projects like this can go into effect into townships that don't have their own ordinances. So our township decided to take the approach to write workable ordinances, which is one of the options we have. Basically, there's three options. We can do nothing. And in November, then whatever ordinances the state writes, that's what we get. Second option is to do ordinances that have to be kind of adopted by all the municipalities, the county and various townships. It's called a CREO. It's very complicated and it's kind of fraught with pitfalls. And that's one that our attorney suggested that we avoid at all costs. The third option is to do workable ordinances, which is what we've been doing as a planning commission. And that approach, in my mind, is the best option because we can work with these guys and we can write our own ordinances and try to pass them how we would normally pass ordinances, and then work together with them rather than basically taking whatever the state says our ordinances need to be. So we think it's the best alternative in working with the hand that we've been dealt from the legislature. And I will say that I think it's been a good process for us because we've had a lot of conversations with Vesper Energy where we've had meetings like this or different concerns that have been raised. And we've been able to go back to them and say, hey, here's a concern we have about sound, for example. And I'm sure EJ will talk about this, and they've come back and said, hey, we talked to our sound engineer, we took your concern to them, and we have a proposal for this project that will help mitigate sound even more. So working together is always better than just doing nothing and not having any say in the matter. So that's the approach we're taking. And from a process standpoint, we have worked with our planning commission attorney who is on the Michigan Township Association. She's been working at a state level, helping to draft ordinances for townships to help them through this process. Her name is Catherine Kaufman, and she helped us draft, put together a draft ordinance for our own battery storage system. And it has now been passed up to the county planning commission. The process works. Our planning commission drafts the ordinances. We send it to the county planning commission. They review it. Then it comes back to our township board. Our township board votes to approve or not, or change those ordinances before they're adopted. And so it's not, none of this has been adopted yet. It's still working its way through the process. But there were some grant monies that were available to us potentially if we were to adopt our own ordinances before the November deadline when this kicks in on its own. So we've been trying to kind of balance all that. I believe personally that it's put us in the best position possible in terms of something that is likely to happen no matter what, based on how the state's proceeding with this. But we've been able to at least interject a lot of feedback from people into the ordinances that we've written and drafted that will eventually go before the board of trustees. And I'll just mention too real quick, if you guys don't know this, Dave Marcelletti's here, he's on the planning commission. Anita Manley's here, she's on the planning commission as well. So you can talk to them with questions. And then Gary and Karen Druss are on our board of trustees too. So if you have questions, you can talk to them as well. Sorry, that seemed like a lot. Before I hand it over to EJ, any questions about what I said or the night or the agenda or anything like that?
Grant money, how much of the grant money is that really
talking? The grant money is based on the number of megawatts, and there's a grant currently available through Eagle for townships that adopt their own ordinances, and it's $5,000 per megawatt. So for this facility, it would be $1 million grant. There was previously a deadline for application on that grant of September 30th, which we were trying to work backwards from if we wanted to have an opportunity to apply for that grant. But we just recently, probably within the last week or 10 days, learned that the deadline on that was lifted, which is nice. It gives us a little more breathing room, so we're not quite as rushed. But there still is a limited amount of funds in that grant pool. So once it's been applied for and awarded, it's run out. So there still is a little bit of incentive if we want to apply for that to mitigate any of the whatever on this project, that we should at least get in line for that. Because we haven't heard exactly how many applicants there are for that, but Catherine said she's pretty aware that there's a lot of activity happening around the state. So good question. Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna kick this over to EJ. EJ, what is this, like a 10-15 minute presentation?
5-10. I'm gonna get into the Q&A real quick because I know
Okay.
you guys are here for the meat and potatoes. So
y'all just showed
come
up,
on in,
feel
folks.
free
Yeah,
to-
we're just getting started. So
Write your questions down while he's doing the presentation, and we'll get right to it.
yeah, write your questions down. We'll come around. Peter will, when you have a question, just put your card up and Peter will walk around and grab it for you folks. My name is EJ Fike. I'm the community affairs manager for this project. I work for Vesper Energy. Our project is the Gypsum Peak Energy Storage Project. Sam?
Hi, I'm Simmons Green. I'm filling in for Rich, who's the lead project developer. He's on my team. I'm just kind of here for support. He's actually having a baby, expected anytime within this week, so they won't pull him from home. But yeah, I'm here to kind of answer any questions on the technology side, batteries, kind of anything you guys have on that standpoint.
And what my role is with the company is I am basically your community liaison. I'm the guy that works with the community and with the local governments to ensure that we're trying to put together the best projects for you folks as possible, because that is our goal, is to be a community partner, not just a nameless corporation from Dallas, Texas. So with that all being said, a little bit of background on us. Vesper Energy. As I said, we're based out of Dallas, Texas. We are a utility scale renewable energy and energy storage developer and operator. So what that means is we build the really big projects. So typically a lot of folks, they think of rooftop solar or maybe, the solar on your house. We do what's called utility scale that goes back specifically to the grid. So a little bit bigger scale. We were founded in 2015. We used to be under the banner of Lend-Lease. You may have heard of them in the past, but business got so big, we became Vesper Energy in 2020. As of right now, we're blacking out.
There we go.
There you go. Team has developed about 10 gigs of renewable energy projects globally. We have 9,000 plus megawatt hours in the pipeline, and 17 energy projects completed. Right now, I believe we have 59 total projects in development across the country. I'm specifically the East Coast manager, so my territory is the East Coast. All right, so where are we in the process? So we are super early in this process. So folks, don't worry, this thing is not happening tomorrow. It's not happening in 6 months. It's not happening for a long time. We're here early on because we want to involve you from the very beginning. We want to make sure that everybody feels like they've at least been able to share their thoughts on this project. And for the most part, we're going to do whatever we can to build a project that works both for you and for us. So construction, we estimate construction 2027, operations, at the end of 2027. So like I said, about 2-3 years out. All right. All right, energy storage. So I can go over all this, but essentially what we're doing is we are storing energy that is not being used during the day. So our business model, buy energy low, sell energy when it's higher. So what we do is we charge our batteries when electricity is abundant during the day, when we're all, at work, we're not using our individual homes. That energy right now, it just goes nowhere, goes into the ground. So what we do is we capture that excess energy, we charge our batteries, and then at night when we all go home, flip on our TVs, our air conditioners, dishwashers, etc., we'll start putting and discharging that battery and getting power back to the grid. So that's what we do. That's kind of the business model. Think of our stock arbitrage, if you're familiar with that, buy low, sell high. This is our site plan. So this is basically our not completed design. This isn't in the final stages, but this gives us a very, 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 very good look at what this final project will look like. There's still some room for us because we're going to have to do a bunch of more studies and everything, but so could change a little bit. But essentially what you have up here are storage containers. We have right down here, you can't really see it, but down here are the transmission lines. This is the question, why are you building this project here? Why this site? There's these transmission lines that run right here, and this specific line at this specific intersection and junction has 200 megawatts of availability. So at one point in time, it was carrying 200 megawatts more than it is today, and they're looking for someone to replace that load. So that's what we're going to do. Is we're going to build a 200 megawatt battery here, charge it during the day when we have all that excess electricity, and then discharge it when it's necessary. We'll build a little substation switch yard here. You see this little green buffer right here? This is all vegetative screening. What we did is when we first came out here is we went to the houses that were surrounding the projects, and we found out today that we missed some folks that maybe lived a little bit farther away. So we're going to talk with them. But we went over and, we explained to them what we were doing with the project. We asked them, what are your questions? What are your reservations? Just like you, sound, impact to our quality of life, etc. We went over all of the things with them, and we were able to sit down and, work out a situation where they were good with it and we were good with it. And one of those things is that, they had requested and we had offered is a vegetated buffer. So this is basically a screening so that you guys don't have to look at it. You don't have to see it. We're going to plant. We're going to come back and work with the neighbors and see what kind of vegetative buffer they want. So let them pick it out because they got to look at it and everything. But that's essentially the site plan. You see all this water right here? I promise you, these are not lakes. These are not standing pools of water. This is a little bit of a little creek that runs right here. These have been identified as wetlands by Eagle. But we've also done studies and we've gotten the approval from Eagle to design the project around these wetlands without impacting. All right, technology used. So this is what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. This is an actual storage container system that's built running up today. This is just kind of like your 3D model. This particular manufacturer is Tesla. We don't know exactly the maker that we'll use because construction's a couple years out, technology is gonna get better. But we have a list of vendors, Tesla being one of them. Our goal is always to try to use domestic if possible. We're an American company. We want to try to use as much American as possible as well. No impact, local air, water during normal operations, meaning that these things do not emit any gases or anything when they're running normally as operated. Safe, proven technology. These have been up and running for a while now. Just this past summer in Texas, I'm sure you all have heard about, the blackouts and the brownouts that happened there. The last couple of years, they really invested in their grid, putting these down there, and it prevented them from having the same issues this past summer. And they're quiet. This is a big concern, a lot of folks, 55, 70 decibels is the average range of these things. When I say that, that is like at the property, like you would climb our 6-foot fence, come into the enclosure and then stand there, and then you would be able to hear it at 55 to 70 decibels. 55 to 70 decibels is about what I'm speaking at right now. Anybody wants to download an app on their phone, they can kind of test it. Obviously, it's not scientific, but it gives you a good idea. Also, if you just Google, average sound decibels, the conversation is 55, 60 decibels. So it is relatively quiet, inconspicuous and screened once we complete construction and we get the vegetative buffers up. All right, so storage safety. This is a big question for a lot of folks, reasonably so. Sands, you want to talk about maybe some of the storage components and how safe this technology is?
Yeah, just kind of adding to the fact on what EJ was talking about. Lithium ion batteries have been around forever. Everybody in this room has one on them right now, and it's on their cell phone. So it's a proven safe technology. Our batteries and our storage containers actually have a BMS monitoring system in all of them, which can early detect any kind of cell going out or dying on it that can be immediately shut off from the rest of the system and isolated. Once they're isolated, we will have an employee that is going to be maintaining and would come and take care of that and replace the battery if need be. Anything else? We also do have an HVAC system on every single container. The HVAC system is the heating and ventilating and cooling system, which pretty much just monitors and keeps these batteries at the optimum temperature in order to keep them running no matter what the outside weather conditions are like. And that kind of just is able to make the batteries perform at their peak performance. Yes.
And then in addition to that, what we'll do before anything ever goes into the ground construction wise is we'll meet with your safety director, your fire chief, and we'll go over a safety plan with them. We will cover the cost of any training that is necessary for the local EMS and first responders to ensure that this township doesn't have to carry that burden, but also that you folks are as prepared as possible in the event that there ever would be an issue at one of these projects. All right.
Excuse me.
We're gonna do questions at the end. Almost done. All right. Last but not least, so talked a little bit about the technology and everything like that. These are some of the benefits. A lot of folks, they ask, landowner or the company, they're making some money, what about us? We get stuck with this, we got to look at it. Some of the benefits to this project is obviously, it's going to help the grid. Those are kind of overarching things, but I think really for you folks, this is going to produce a high amount of tax revenue. We did get a tax study done for this. We're pretty confident we're going to become your largest taxpayer once this project is built. And we're talking about in the millions of dollars in significant. So pretty significant amount of tax revenue coming in. And on top of that, we have our community giving program. This is just kind of a grant scholarship, grant sponsorship programs that we have to try to help out in the community. Think soccer teams, sponsoring. Sands and I have a project up in Livingston. We're sponsoring, their under-7 hockey team. So things like that. We really want to just try to help out with the community where we can, So that's part of our program is our community giving program. That's a quarterly grant that we'll put out starting next quarter. So I'll, be advertising for that in the next coming weeks. So if, Cub Scouts, football teams, Boys and Girls Clubs, YMCA, whatever it can be, they're eligible for this. You don't have to be a 501c3, you don't have to have official paperwork. You just got to be a legitimate organization trying to help out the area. In addition to that, there will be some economic development coming here to this area. We are getting an economic impact study created just to see exactly what that'll be, but we'll have to bring in some folks for the construction aspect of it. They'll have to buy gas, they're gonna have to buy some food, things of that nature. So there'll be a little bit of indirect economic impact from that as well. Last but not least, and Jason had already mentioned it, but there is the state of Michigan's grant program. You don't have to worry about that deadline anymore. We just found out that they extended it, but it is limited. And we did pull how many megawatts are right now in the queue. I think it was 40,000 is what I pulled. 41,000 megawatts right now are like in development across Michigan. So basically that money is, you want to get it now, because if you wait too long, it might be used up by the other projects. So that, just throwing that out there. But essentially, Columbia will get $1 million, no strings attached. That's for you and your township to decide what to do for. And that would just be for citing our project and giving us our permit. Doesn't come from us. We have nothing to do with it. I didn't create it. It's just something that we want to make sure the townships that we're in know about so that you guys can take advantage of it. FAQs, which we'll do next. And he changed he put my name on it. Thank you. So that was it. Went through a little bit faster this time because I know you folks have a ton of questions.
Okay, let me start collecting
So,
questions. So
yeah.
if anybody has questions written down, raise your hand, I'll come grab them.
Awesome.
How many are there in Michigan? How many? Like
Operational?
operational and in the way?
There's
I'm not sure they're operational at the moment, but we have 3 projects that we're developing in areas.
they're in the same exact stage as your project. It's right now.
So
Oakland
I could
and-
answer,
and
ask a
Austin.
question.
We're
and
gonna
then
have-
I
we're
write
gonna-
them down.
Oakland County and Austin. That's, I think I've already connected Ken with
I think
yeah,
I remember.
yeah. And Sans and I can connect you with Osteo, but you guys are actually, we probably.
Okay, you can
I'll-
ask, it's fine, but we're just trying to make this a little more orderly than last time, because it was monopolized by some people.
All right, that's a great question, and I don't have the answer to this. All right. All right, so I got first question. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna try to get to everybody's questions, and I'm here, so like, if you don't feel comfortable asking in the group setting, like pull me aside or whatever, we can talk. So where does the name Gypsum Peak come from? That's a great question, and I've never asked it. Rich, who made this project or who developed this project, came up with it. I'm gonna find out though. So who was that? That was you? Okay, I'll find out. Great question though. All right, what kind of emergencies have you seen at other facilities? Okay, so just, there have been, they like to call them thermal runaways. I just like to be a normal person. There have been fires at some of the early storage projects that were first developed in the beginning stages of this technology. Was it the last 4 years since they started tracking? We've
Yeah.
seen a 0.4% incident rate?
They had one in California, however, that project was developed with different type of technology and a different type of battery, not lithium ion, and it's not really approved by the industry standard.
So early on, when these, in the, 5-10 years ago, when these storage batteries started coming on, specifically mostly in Asia, that's what's driving up these fire numbers that you may have seen if you've done some Googling. There was really no regulations, there was no really safety overview, and it was a really new technology. All these fires started happening and everyone was like, whoa, we really got to change something here. So they started tracking, the technology's gotten much better. And then, not to knock other countries, but here in America, we're kind of known for over regulating things to a degree. So we're a lot more, zoned in on the safety regulations and in the operations. Some of those things were caught on fire because they were being operated. What, they're over operated,
They're
right?
over,
Yeah.
over,
But you're saying,
overextending the battery, overcharging, over discharging, and a lot of these projects in other countries don't have the BMS system, which is the battery monitoring system, which can detect early signs of a battery moving, so. So we're going into a thermal runaway.
so I'd lie to you if I sat up here and said these things are perfect, nothing will ever happen, something could happen. 100%, is it likely to happen? No, it is not likely, not with all the safety systems that we have, but I can't sit here and say an act of God won't cause something for this thing to catch on fire or anything. But what I can say is that we've put in plenty of safety precautions and training and studies to prevent, even if there is a thermal runaway, AKA a fire, that one, your city, your township isn't gonna be, we're not gonna have to evacuate the whole area or anything like that, or we're not gonna have, a toxic plume covering the next 20-30 square miles. We've done things such as plume studies, where we've actually burned, we've studied the fire and the chemicals in it and traced how far out those have gone with the wind and things like that. And everything is within regulations of the EPA, DEP, and all of that. Did that answer, cover questions for that? We can come back to it. Yeah. What is the battery temperature min max control?
Yeah, the HVAC systems are supposed to keep a battery at the optimal temperature on how they're supposed to be performing. Regardless of the outside conditions, the HVAC systems, which are a very expensive part of the project, can monitor and keep it at the constant temperature of between 60 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit.
But if you want like a more exact answer, I can get that for you, but that's an estimated, so, yeah. All right. Why did Vesper Energy pick this spot for the battery storage facility? So as I had said, the number one thing that is driving us towards, or that brought us to this area were those transmission lines right there on that road. So those big, thick power lines, we identified those. I don't know exactly how Sands and his teams start these, but I know that they need to look for availability on the transmission lines. So as you guys know, you've had some power plants up in this area go offline over the last few years. You're not producing the same amount of electricity as that you were in the past. So now there's this extra availability. So we're coming in here to fill the gaps. So that line specifically at that juncture is available to produce that's not 200 megawatts, to produce 200 megawatts of electricity. And that land, we have a landowner that's willing and wants to work with us. And then the land constraints work both from an environmental and from a structural perspective on how we would build this project. So that's what brought us here. Really think about these projects as we need to have all three things line up. And that's one, transmission capability, land capability, and then a landowner willing to work with us. Because we can't come in and what do you call it? If the government comes in and, we can't eminent domain anybody or anything. Anyone who works with us, this is all on a voluntary basis.
Yeah, and I can kind of dive in a little bit more on that on site selection and everything. Typically, when I'm prospecting and looking for sites, I'm looking for land availability, I'm looking for proximity to the load, and I'm looking for available capacity. How it works is the majority of the load is in certain areas, and this happens to be one of the areas where the price of electricity is very volatile. The price of electricity ranges a lot in this area. So a battery energy storage system will be perfectly put and implemented here. Not saying that you're the only ones in the whole state that have that problem. However, it's the optimal location in this area of the state, as far as how the grid works and how the grid lines work.
So this was a three-parter question. So I'm going to get to the second part of this question. How is this facility cost effective? So essentially, we're a business before anything. So, we have stakeholders, we have investors that we have to answer to. So our number one thing is making a profit. So none of this stuff is happening unless we know that it's a viable project that's going to provide us with a good return. So we've done feasibility studies, things like that. The business model itself this is one of the cheapest ways, even though we're not producing electricity, we're providing electricity. So we're essentially doing kind of the same thing that oil, gas, solar, wind are doing, but we're doing it at a way less cost. So that's why this is a viable thing. We do not get any subsidies from the state or from the federal government. So if you folks, I think there's a misconception that Joe Biden's making us build these things and everything. That's just not the truth. There is in the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, there is a post-construction tax credit that we do take advantage of, but that is based on us using things like prevailing wage, a certain amount of domestic goods used in our products. So it's a beneficial tax credit that we get post-construction. So not one federal dollar is going into this project. None of your tax dollars are going into this project. This is all privately funded money. All right. Does every township need this? And where is it at in town? Okay. Not every, so I guess a misconception would be that this electricity maybe is going to go into your house directly from the battery once we build it. That's kind of not the way it works. I think the best way to think about electricity is it's like it flows like water. So think of a river. You got some you got a rushing river, and then you got some tributaries here. We can't stop that water from going down this tributary or that creek unless we build a dam. So that's how electricity flows. It's going to go to the nearest point it's needed. So to answer this question, does every township need this? We don't need a storage battery in every single township, but we do need these at certain points in the grid, like Sands had identified, because this is going to help us. We need to rebuild our domestic infrastructure across the country, not just Michigan. We haven't done and put any money or invested really any money into our infrastructure in decades. So it's just in really bad need of projects like this. So it's like what Sands said, this corridor in this part of the state, it needed it. So, someone wouldn't be able to come in next week and build another one right next to us. There's not going to be 40 of these or 2 of these or 3 of these in your township or anything like that.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what he said, I don't want you guys to think that you're not getting any benefit from this project. You actually are getting benefit from this project. All these transmission lines lead to a substation. Those substations break down into 3-phase lines, and those are just running in between your neighborhoods and throughout your community. So you guys will be, as you are closest to the load, you will be probably the direct benefit of the project. However, it will supply the overall area of this part of the state.
All right, another question in here was, and I'm sorry, I think it says winter recharging batteries proven doesn't work with cars. Okay, so I think this is the cold question. In the winter, I think there's
EJ, maybe whoever asked that question, do you want to clarify the
Yeah.
question?
somebody asked a question about the battery charging in the winter. Is that you? Is it basically just like, does that make a difference? Is that?
It seems like it doesn't work when people are trying to charge their car.
So I actually have a Tesla. I drive one. I promise you it works. I mean, I've driven it here before and everything like that from Pennsylvania. I live in Erie. I drive it all over the country. I bought it specifically for this job because I was spending so much money on gas driving. It 100% works. I think there's a lot of, as we know, a lot of misinformation going around in the news, mainstream, wherever you get it from. As someone who's been driving one for the last 2 years, I've never had an issue charging my car, and it takes about 10 minutes for me to charge. I usually plug it in, go inside, use the bathroom, come back out, get my car and drive away. But in regards to this battery system, as Sands had mentioned, this thing is maintained at the same temperature all year round. So it has that internal HVAC system. So both the cold and the heat will be addressed by the heating and cooling systems inside. Does that answer your question?
You didn't say where in the township it is. The second one.
Oh, it's on, I believe it's West 54.
50th and 50th.
Between
50th.
and 380.
Sorry about that. All right. Palisades Nuclear will be back online within a few years. Why would it require a battery storage? And why would it not be built next to generating plants, either Palisades or the existing gas plants? It's a great question. And this is just kind of, it doesn't matter how you generate electricity. You can't, if you don't store the electricity, it's gonna go away. You can't just electricity doesn't just kind of hang out, if that makes sense. So no matter if Palisades comes back online, the electricity that it produces that doesn't get used is just gonna go to waste. It won't go to waste with batteries like ours across the state. And that's why you're seeing projects like ours popping up all over the country, or all over the state and the country, is because yes, some of these other generating facilities are starting to come back online, and now the grid can't handle it unless we put some of these storage batteries in comparison or in with them. So they don't need to be right next to each other, because then the electricity still has to flow to the closest point. So if we build all the electricity all just like right here in this area, it's gonna cost a lot more money to get it all the way across the state or anything like that. So we have to spread it out, if that makes sense.
Battery energy storage is also like a grid multi-tool. It can take any form of electricity, no matter how it was produced or made, and use it to store and then discharge later on.
So it just looks at electrons. It doesn't care if it was solar, nuclear, wind, coal, gas. An electron is an electron to a battery. And some people, they ask why we call it renewable energy. And that's why we call it renewable energy, is because it can take any form of energy. It doesn't produce it. It just puts it out on the grid. Does that answer your question? Yeah, your storage facility is not wanted by the local landowners near the proposed site. Your storage facility is not green. Well, I think, Steve, if you don't mind, Steve and his wife, they live right across the street from this project. They were the first people whose doors we knocked on, and they had a lot of the same questions that you guys had. And we came out maybe 2-3 times out to your house. And we went over, and Rich, had a lot of phone conversations with them. And, we provided them with all the information they needed. And, they do not oppose our project whatsoever. I don't want to speak for Steve or his wife. They are here. But if you have any questions about the neighbors, they are the neighbors. The other neighbor would be a farmer who lives just north of us, who we spoke to. And his words were, "I don't give a S what you do on your own property. I'm not going to tell another man what he can or can't do on his own land." So that gentleman didn't have an issue with us as well. We just found out that there is a neighbor, sir, I guess, south of the project that we didn't consider, I guess, would be impacted, but we definitely want to meet with anybody else who you do feel you may be impacted by this project. So I'd love to grab your information, and we can sit down and talk, and we can, figure out what the issues are, and hopefully come to a good place with that. But thank you for your question. Can you describe the lighting configuration and impact? So this would be project, we're built, we're operational. What's it gonna look like from a lighting standpoint? Are we gonna have floodlights? Are we gonna have?
That's typically, that's gonna be decided upon pre-construction, which that's kind of the last element. But if you look over on that, you can see there's typically the lighting at a normal substation is how I can compare it to you guys. If you ever seen a substation up close, they have minimal lights, just nothing that's gonna blind anybody or any glare or anything like that.
It's
Yeah,
not
just,
like the pot stations in,
sorry.
the pot growers got the big bright lights.
No. Yeah.
There's no reason for that. And I mean, technologies, that's kind of a thing that we could get local influence on what they want. I mean, I know some projects have the type of lights that come on when somebody just gets near it. And that's like the auto detection of somebody's in the area and they're working on something. So that's kind of just up to pre-construction and our vendor at the moment.
But I would also keep in mind, folks, that this thing is gonna be like, we're gonna do our best to screen it 360 degrees so that you don't even really know it's there. You're gonna know it's there, obviously. We're not perfect, but like, we're gonna do our best. If you look at when this is over, and I had it up on here, but if you go back and you look at our site maps, there's a little green strip that goes all the way from the top of our property all the way down. That's the vegetative buffer that we're gonna build alongside the road for visual and for sound. But then there's also gonna be forestry. We're not gonna knock down all the trees. We're not leveling the ground or anything like that. So you're still gonna have your natural vegetation that's there as well to help out with any, you know, light pollution, sound pollution, etc.
This question probably goes off that. Not sure if that's something you and Rich agree to. That's for the ordinance.
Didn't you agree to the dark sky portion of the new ordinance? We haven't agreed, like we haven't agreed to, there's no agreement.
I can answer
Yeah,
that.
okay.
We did, at the suggestion of our attorney, based on some drafts that she had helped us work on. We wrote into our ordinance, dark sky friendly language. So that, if you missed the first part of the meeting, our draft ordinances have been passed along to the county planning commission for review, then they come back to our township for voting, so it's still working its way through the process, but presumably we would vote as a township to pass in dark sky friendly terminology in our ordinances.
So if we wanted, if that's something that your township passes, and if we want to get a permit through your township, we would have to abide by any of the ordinances. And like, I think that's a really key factor here, folks, is, you know, we got to follow your rules. And that's why we're here, is we want to make sure that you folks get the best set of standards that you feel you can get from this. So if that's what you put in, and we're just gonna have to deal with it then, I guess. I don't,
Come November, do you still have to follow those rules?
we don't have to follow the rules. Just to be candid, like, we don't have to follow the rules today. We could just wait until November. I
That's
could,
what I'm saying.
yeah, no. So there's not,
So you saying you gotta follow our rules is really not good.
no, I'm saying that I'm here right now doing all of this so that I can follow your rules. I don't have to, no one's forcing us to be here. No one's forcing us to have this conversation,
No, I know.
and nobody's forcing us to kind of put in the extra money for the designs that we have and the extra setbacks and everything that we have working with the township. We could save all that money and all that and just go to the state, but I don't want to do that, because then I truly am jamming this project down your throat. And listen, like Jason said, like, I'm a human too. I got family. I'm just like you guys. I wouldn't want someone coming to my backyard being like, sorry, you're gonna get it done. So I'm trying to we're here now so that we can have these conversations and try to find the best project that we possibly can build for you and the community. So that's why we're here right now. But yeah, 100%, man, I could go, you know, we can go in November and just follow through the state and not have to pay
Which is
the money.
in the same aspect, if you don't like what we write up, you can just say whatever anyway.
I'm sorry?
In the same aspect, if you don't like what we write up or what we come up with,
Yeah,
you can just say whatever and wait till November anyway. So really, you don't have to follow nothing.
correct. Correct. What's up?
I have one thing, I think this might have gotten lost in translation. Were you also asking if we receive a permit from the township after November, that November deadline doesn't like supersede any of the
No,
local permits?
He's asking whether or not we're gonna follow the town, if the township's rules don't work for us, whether we have to follow them by law.
Gotcha.
So the fact is, no, we don't have to. We have two options, as Jason said. Option one and option 1A and option 1AB is to work with you guys and to get this done through the township. That's my-
Those are your options, not ours.
Right, we don't-
Sure. Okay,
As a company, we would rather work with you. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
What about current fires? I guess maybe expand a little bit on current fires.
I meant more recent in the last couple of years, and I did notice some all involved using LG batteries, if that means anything.
No.
A brand of batteries, the LG brand.
Said in the last couple
In the
years.
US here, in the last couple of years, I thought I read about some fires that were caused by the brand of battery. There was something faulty with the actual batteries. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, that might be the one over in California that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier.
I can't remember where it was.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
most recent one was out in California. It's a different battery than what we use, a different technology as well.
And I did read about one that had a fire during development, and it was the same batteries.
Yeah,
So I was wondering what batteries you guys were.
yeah, we'll use lithium ion batteries.
No, I meant brand, the
Oh,
brand.
yes, so to your point, we do not select a technology until we are close to construction and need to select our product. The reason we do that is because the industry's rapidly advancing and we want to select the most safe and proven technology at that time.
So will you look at the history, of the batteries, like, have they ever?
Absolutely, yeah, we vet, absolutely, yeah, because I gotta stand up here in front of you. If we pick a bad battery and explain why I picked that battery, so absolutely, yeah, we wanna vet, we wanna use the safest and the most up-to-date current batteries, we wouldn't wanna go and pick something that just caught fire, you know, and has a it wouldn't make any sense for us from a business perspective. The hardest thing about these projects isn't building them, it's getting them ready to be built, if that makes sense, it's this part and everything.
Yeah, and
So-
these projects are a very large investment on our part. So I mean, we want to have the most proven technology that's gonna work
Yeah.
the best and operate the best. Yeah,
So yes, 100%. We're, you know, we don't want batteries that stink, so. All right, so this is the last question I have out of here. Sans has some more, never mind. Do you hire local HVAC contractors or do you have a traveling team? Great question. So one of the programs I run, and I didn't bring it up in here, but I run what's called our local vendor program. And essentially what I want to do is involve as many local vendors and contractors, businesses as possible on our project. This is going to be anywhere from 150 to $200 million to build this thing. And it's going to take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of opportunity for folks to make some money off of this. So what we do typically is we hire a general contractor, and then that general contractor will go out and they'll hire, you know, all the folks that they need. But what I'll do is I'll provide them with a list of local vendors from our vendor program. So if you mow grass, if you own a laundromat, if you own a restaurant, if you're a dog groomer, I know that sounds crazy, but these are guys that are coming in from out of town because, you know, you can't always get local people, and they're bringing their pets, or they're bringing, you know, or they're coming with their families. So they need to go, you know, where they can clean their clothes, you know, where a good spot is. One of my favorite vendors on one of my projects, he owns a gun armory. He showed up to my event and he signed up. And now the guys from the construction, like, that's the things that they do on the weekend. They go down to the gun armory and they go shoot guns and stuff. So anything like that local that you guys have, when we get a little bit closer, I'll put a web page up. We already have a website, chipsandpeakenergy.com, but I'll add a little link up there, and then you can sign up your business on that. And then you don't have to do anything. When it goes time for a bid, we'll contact you and ask you for an RFP for whatever work it may be. And then if it's not like a construction work or anything like that, and you're just a local vendor, we'll give that to all the guys when they come in town, so they know, you know, the restaurants, the gas stations, things like that. Oh, a couple more, all right. No national fire safety training, is that true? Whoever's question is that, yes?
I was just reading that there are currently that there haven't been standards developed yet because this technology is
So
so
new.
new.
Yeah, it's
Is that
currently,
true?
I don't know if there's a governing body. I don't even know if that's like a thing that exists that does utility scale.
It's the
safety
National
training.
Fire, I was reading a lot of fire.
Yeah,
Fire
but
department sites.
there's a lot of kind of consultants popping up around this, retired fire chiefs, fire safety folks, and that's who we would bring in as a retired fire chief. And our safety director, we're actually hiring. If anybody's a safety director and you're looking for a job, Vesper Energy is hiring, by the way. So we're actually in between safety directors right now, but we are hiring our safety director, and essentially our safety director, our firefighting consultant will come in and they'll work with the local townships to provide that training and everything like that.
going off that too. When we come out and we provide fire training for your community, it's not just a one-time thing.
Yeah.
We do it and we get out. We'll do that periodically throughout the project's life cycle, and any kind of updates on I guess the best practices for these type of fires or anything would be communicated to them and trained.
At our cost.
At our-
Yeah. Anytime, so maybe you get a new fire chief and they haven't been trained, would come out and we'll provide the training, or our consultant will come out, provide the training. You guys get new fire staff, will come out, provide the training. So we'll always make sure that that training is available and it never costs anything to the township.
Is you just, basically the training right now is let it burn, though, isn't it?
That's the best approach.
Because we have nothing to put it out, which means all the chemicals that are burning are going to somebody else's, all through the atmosphere, into the houses and everything.
So we've done a plume study. The plume study says at the fence line, it's below the national standard on what is considered a safe environment. And that's at the fence line. We've modeled it out all around the fence line and it just drops off even lower than where we measured it at the actual fence line from going.
From what I've seen, they.
Yes.
Yes,
Smoke?
Yes.
Can you tell us what's in the smoke,
so it's been compared to a typical,
what the chemicals are?
yeah, it's been classified and compared to a plastics fire. So I guess think couches, that type of, just anything that would be in a house fire, typically, that's what you're working with. So a plastics fire.
Yeah, I mean, there's not like, it's not like radioactive material or anything. It's really kind of,
No, but it's still costly.
I'm sorry?
No, but it's still costly.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's, yeah, I mean, I can't sit up here and tell you that it won't be an issue if there's a fire, for sure. 100%. There'll be issues. It's not gonna, nobody's gonna be happy about that, especially us. It's, we are contractually obligated to provide this power. There's a fire, we're gonna be in breach of our contract. So we're gonna do everything that we can to make sure that this thing never has a fire, that it's always running operational. That's 24 hour, 7-day-a-week monitoring. This thing is never not gonna be monitored. So it would have to be a very, very big breach of our diligence for something to really get out of hand in this. I can't promise you and say it won't. I'd be a liar, because it's always an option,
There's
just like
always
anything.
a chance.
Exactly, but it's, you know,
It's
it's
just
just,
the fact that it's caustic.
Yeah.
It's not a minute fire like you're talking. It's a very extreme fire.
well, we did the studies and, you know, the folks that kind of the, you know, that's what they do on a day-to-day basis, and they're the ones that are responsible for kind of coming up with their standards. As Sans had said, at the fence line, and nobody should ever be at our fence line. Like, there's no reason for you to be at our fence line. That means you came onto our property like significantly, and now you're like really onto our property. It's within the EPA standards. So, you know, when we get out over to the road, it's gonna be that much less.
Yeah, and going back off of expanding on the let it burn approach, which is the best case right now. Yes, correct. That's not just, it's not just let it burn and just let it burn. The fire department would be containing the fire to just that one area and also,
Gets fire, that's.
Yeah,
Sorry?
exactly. Yep.
and then off gassing as well is a thing that is, our batteries have detection that can single out the cell that is likely to catch or do a thermal runaway event. And they can disconnect that from the entire rest of the battery system, so it can be isolated and could prevent it from even going into a thermal runaway event.
So if one catches fire, are they close enough to each
No.
other that they'll catch the other one?
They're all in containers. If you look over at this.
No, I understand, but are they far enough apart from each other that when, if one catches fire, the others don't?
Yeah, they're all housed
Or
in
like-
individual.
Like a house catches fire in the next house, and, you know, if the wind's right, it's gonna catch fire too.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So are we gonna get an avalanche effect? if
No,
we
you
get-
will not. And we'll actually shut that. We have the availability to shut that specific container off.
Right,
from the
if it's
rest-
already on fire, that does no good.
Well, it's inside of a steel container.
Okay,
And each, inside of each, if you go to kind of look at this photo over here, there's these in each individual cabinet doors. Each
Right.
individual cabinet doors houses the racks,
right.
and they are each cut off from the rest of the actual
Right,
battery
the
system.
fires you see, they burnt out of that because obviously you can see the flames, so they're not contained inside that box.
The answer is no, they will not jump and spread. That's the systems
will not
that we put in and everything like that. And we can individually shut them off so that the others are operating and the other, while the others, you know, if there's an issue. All right, have you researched any brownfields for the project in the area? Yes, we have multiple times. Trust me, if there's a better place, I will put it, because people don't complain about brownfields, they don't complain about reclaimed strip mines, things like that. If we could build these projects on these areas, I promise you we would, because it eliminates a lot of the issues we have. Unfortunately, for all the reasons I said, this site is where this project is cited for right now. Yeah, any more? Anybody else? Which,
There's a few more. So. That one.
oh, this one right here, sorry. Will the battery, I'm sorry, that's my fault. Will the battery storage facility escalate future solar projects close to this area? No, so I built, Sans works specifically on our storage team. Peter and I developed storage and solar, but then we also develop hybrid projects as well. So I actually have 6 solar projects that I'm developing around the country. The great thing that you'll know is that 200 megawatts of transmission capability, that's what brought us here. We're the only ones that can build on that. Nobody else can come in here. There's not any more bandwidth. There's no more room to build a project like this here because we're gonna use it. So
So
that's
that take up the available capacity, so there'd be no.
I heard that there was one going, solar thing going in, not even a mile, probably a mile and a half away.
there may be, but so maybe early on you missed it, but what I said, we build utility scale solar projects.
Right.
So I can't speak on a residential project.
This is the utility scale. 80 acres.
Okay, well, that's not utility scale, just so you know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a utility
So
scale
that would
solar
be a
project.
community.
That's a community solar project.
No, it's getting built right on the power line.
Okay, I'm just trying to explain to you the difference. That's not a utility scale, so 80 acres is, we need,
It's
5 acres.
Like 1,000 acres, the project.
Okay.
It's 1,000 acres.
Altogether, it's 1,000.
If it's 1,000 acres, potentially it could be, but it's not gonna happen on that transmission line.
It's exactly for that.
It's not gonna happen on that transmission line at that point of interconnection, because that's where we're building it. If it happened 20, 30
It's
mil,
within a mile.
what's that?
It's within a mile of that point.
Not anything that we're aware of.
It's not on our radar.
It's not on ours, and we're,
I don't know how far they are in their
There's
interconnection.
already signatures and people signing up for it.
so they're years, okay.
Yes.
So if there's folks signing up land now, so just so you know, how many years were we in this queue for?
Yeah, this was. This is not my exact project.
I think 3, I
but
think it was 3, right? How long were you in for what's living? 3, right? They all came in. We applied to get into this queue 3 years ago. We just got approval last year for it.
They might be prospecting this area and signing people up. However, once they get to going to submit an interconnection study, with MISO, they might get denied because there's not gonna be the available capacity once our project's installed.
So that's what I was saying. You gotta find a perfect storm of this, like, so there could be 1 or 2 of the things available, but if you don't have all of it, these projects don't
So
happen.
you're saying there's still gonna be capacity available, even
I
if
don't-
Palisades comes back on?
No, I didn't say that at all. What I said is that point of interconnection right there where we have,
Yeah.
there's 200 megawatts available, and we're connecting in and tying in on that line.
So that will
Palisades is
disappear when
down right
Palisades
now.
comes on.
Okay,
Palisades may come back on within the next 5 years.
okay.
So you're saying that there's room to go.
I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is right now, that line has 200 megawatts that it can carry, that it used to, that it's not.
That's because Palisades is down right now.
Okay, so in the meantime, they still need the 200 megawatts of electricity, so we're gonna provide that. And maybe Palisades gets back up, I don't know. Palisades might have to do an interconnection study and upgrade the lines to hold more capacity. That's what we have to do in some circumstances. It's not like, there's no. I wish I could say it's a science, but it's really not, because there's so many different things that have to go right for a project to happen.
I
So,
understand it just doesn't make any sense why there would be a battery storage facility for something as consistent as a nuclear plant.
because you can't store electricity unless,
I understand.
okay, so we're storing the electricity.
But they've never stored it in the last 50 years.
And yeah, and they wasted all that money.
I doubt it.
From what I've heard, the Palisades is far from being.
Yeah, it's within the next 5 to 10 years.
No, as it happens. So they can't plan on something possibly happening.
All right, in the event of a leakage, how do you prevent groundwater contamination? Is a concrete basin part of this design? So concrete basin can be part of the design. We, I don't know if you want to take this one, groundwater contamination.
Yeah, I mean, during normal operation, there's no contaminants being leaked from any of our storage
If
containers.
during
at all.
fire.
Yeah, during a thermal runaway event, there's a few projects down that I mainly operate down in Texas. So, yeah, we're considering, because the community wants it, a basin, concrete basin.
And that's something that if the community wants here and it's something that's needed, that can be done, it's just something we gotta get to that point first, to see if that's necessary. So it's definitely something that we're willing to do if needed. How many BSS and how many solar farms does Vesper have in development and how many are up and running? So we have 59 projects in total in development at some various stage right now. The one, we just sold off a couple projects just these last couple months. So we actually technically don't have any in operation right now. But Hornet is a 600 megawatt project that we have in, is that Odessa? It's in Odessa, Texas, that is being constructed right now. It's gonna go, part of it's going online, right?
Expect to go online at the end of the year.
Yeah, so half of it's gonna go online at the end of the year, and then they'll continue construction. It's gonna be one of the biggest projects in the nation. So that,
You guys have sold off your other ones, is that what you just said? Is that
we
right?
sold, yeah, our last two, correct?
So basically you build them and you sell them off, is that what you're?
Those are solar projects, and that's not always our business strategy. Our business strategy is to be the owner, operator, and developer.
Are you
However,
currently owner operators? Many of them?
Technically, yeah, just, Hornet, I guess, is considered the operations right now, so.
That's solar. Hornets.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
solar
solar, that's a fully solar. Michigan, you know, these three projects up here would be the first of our storage in Michigan, but Sam's has, you have some down in Texas, right?
I have two projects, two standalone storage projects down in Texas, one being south of Dallas over near Eustis, Texas, and then the other one being in a suburb outside of Houston, Texas, over in Cape.
And then I have two others.
Both in the same kind of boat as where this project's at right now. However, our one in Texas is entering into our SUP permit process.
And then I have two other projects up here in Michigan that are standalone storage projects. Basically the exact same juncture as you. Sands and I have one up in Otsego County in Livingston. They're probably one step behind you guys. And then we have the other one is in Oakland County in Groveland Township. And you folks are literally at the exact same stage. We're gonna be passing, getting an ordinance and hopefully our permit at the end of September through them. I read thermal overload from drawing too much energy too fast. Is that true? Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, if you overcharge a battery like they do in other countries and they have no regulation on them, then of course, that could definitely happen. If you overcharge your phone, it'll overheat eventually. Yeah, that is true, yes.
And that's why it's,
Our project will not be run like that. We're not trying to max our batteries out or anything. They'd only be scheduled, it'd be scheduled by when the utility in the area would require.
Who regulates that?
Myself.
Oh, in Michigan here.
yeah, they're the whole, they're what? They're like down.
It's-
almost.
It's, yeah, they actually go down all the way to Louisiana in some areas, but.
So they
yeah,
regulate basically like the Midwest of the countries, all the electric.
Mid-continent.
Yeah.
So if you guys did sell a couple of years down the line and after it was operating, the new owners would be regulated and to the same.
Yeah, so there's a reason why our project is called Gypsum Peak Storage and not Vesper Energy Storage, is because if for some reason we did sell the project down the road, the LLC would be sold. It would be the whole LLC, and with that would be anything that we commit to. So anyone who were to buy our project, if for some reason we were to sell it down the road, they would have to accept all the commitments we made. So community benefits, taxes, landowner contracts, ordinances, permits, they have to abide by all of them. It's part of the deal, or else we wouldn't sell to them. Yes, ma'am.
What's the average construction time frame?
12 to 18.
Yeah, about 12 to 18 months.
Yeah,
What's the life expectancy of the project once completed?
perpetuity. We say anywhere from 25 to 40 years. They're warranted 25.
Yeah, we typically look at 20 years, being the point on how long we would operate the asset. After the 20 years, there's questions about reaugmentation or replacing it altogether with whatever is proven to be the most better technology at the time.
So essentially today, as it stands,
There's no plans for, I guess, anything after the healthy life cycle of this project. That's just 20 years from now. There's no telling what could happen in 20 years.
Yes. But the idea would be to continue on if the technology allowed it.
If not, we go through the decommissioning by the state.
Yep, and then the decommissioning, Michigan has standards, their own standards, I believe. So we'd have to abide by all the Michigan State decommissioning standards. Typically, that's a bond that's put in place before anything is ever constructed. So if for some reason we did belly up or sell the company, Columbia or the county, whoever the jurisdiction would be, already has the money to take down our project and to make the land go back to exactly the way it was before we got here. So.
And you will own the land, is that was my understanding that,
Correct, yeah.
that you're
We
going
have
to buy the
We have a
land.
purchase, an option to purchase right now.
So let's say you still own it and it's no good anymore and it's gonna be decommissioned.
Mhm.
What happens with the land then?
Yeah, probably someone smarter than me would make a decision what to do with that asset.
Yeah.
I imagine we'd probably just get rid of it. We're not a real estate company. We don't want to own land. I only have, this is the only project no, that's a lie. I have 2 projects where we own land. So that all my other projects we lease, because we don't want to have that burden of owning the land and everything, so.
I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of different avenues. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe deed it to the township. I mean, if they would want it,
And that's something that,
build a park after,
yeah.
if they want to do that.
Something Sands and I are doing in one of our other projects is we have 60 acres of land we're using. And I think we have like 30 extra acres in, we're gonna deed it if they want. We're gonna deed it over to the township to create like a little park. Conservation area for them and stuff like that. So. I don't know. I won't be here. Hopefully I'll be running my own company by that time or something like that, or retired by then, hopefully. But yeah, so, but in my other projects, what we do when we lease land, it just goes right back to the landowner. They do whatever they want. So I imagine we just probably sell it, put it on the market. But honestly, I don't see any reason why, from a business standpoint, I gotta imagine the technology is just gonna get better in 20, 30 years. So I don't see why they wouldn't continue the project.
Where are the batteries manufactured?
So some are domestically made, but we'd be lying if we didn't say the majority of them are made out of the country, unfortunately. Our goal is to source as much domestically as we can, but we are business, so we're constrained by the supply chain and the costs. So something that I don't do, you don't buy batteries
I
either,
don't
do
buy
you?
that.
Yeah,
That's
we have
pretty
a procurement team that'll go out, make sure that, one, nothing we use is like slave labor. We vet all of that, we vet all of our vendors, so, we don't have to worry about like a Chinese made battery with slave labor or anything like that. But right now, the majority of them are from like Southeast Asia. But Tesla is a manufacturer in North America. That's what we have over there, and if we can use them, we'll use them, but that's a decision we'll make in a year or two.
Yeah. Like we were going back off of, nothing selected at the moment.
Those are
Yeah,
Tesla
we're-
batteries right there.
And
Well,
Tesla was
those
involved in a
pictures are
large
Tesla
fire.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry?
Tesla was one of the large fires I read about, Tesla batteries.
Yeah, they've been in the game from the beginning, so I bet you they've dealt with a lot of stuff, but their tech is like, they're getting better and better every, through every iteration, so by the time we hit construction, I'm gonna have to probably put together a whole new speech, so. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Batteries, will only take a charge for their lifetime.
Yeah.
And you said this project probably would be like 20 years
Mhm.
projected.
Mhm.
Would you, during that time frame, and the batteries are charged and they're discharged, they're recharged again, because you're using electricity, so they're discharging. How many batteries, if you know, would have to be replaced?
Like how many times do we have to replace them? I mean,
That's re-augmentation.
Yeah.
And the 20-year point is the point where a deciding factor has to be made. Are we gonna re-augment this thing and repower it? Or are we gonna just decommission and that's the end of the project?
Okay, so what you're telling me is that the batteries that originally put in there will last for 20 years?
They're supposed to.
Okay.
Yeah,
They're
they're
warranted out
supposed
to
to.
25.
They're warranted out to 25 years, so the manufacturer covers any defects within the first 25.
But yes, over, just like your phone
Yeah.
battery, you notice it gets lower than the first day you bought it,
Yeah.
and it discharges.
90% only lasts an hour now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we actually designed the project as well to scale out with the batteries
Yeah.
to take that into account too. So we might, when we first build the project, it's actually gonna be more than 200 megawatts, capable of more than 200 megawatts. And that's because we want to take into account that degradation of the batteries.
Okay.
How much
Yeah.
bigger will it be than the 200?
It's like 205 or something.
205.
Yeah, it's
And
like,
then at the 20-year mark, what percentage are you looking at it being down to?
well, it'll still have to operate at, it's gonna have to produce the 200 megawatts all the time. So what they'll do is like we said, it's always monitored 24/7 and there's racks in there. So it's actually not as complicated as you think. I'll call up Sands and be like, hey, Sands, rack 13 is producing a low wattage. We gotta go test it out. All right, Sands pulls the racks, tests it. Looks like we gotta replace this rack. Let's go get some new batteries, replace the rack.
It's got a bad cell.
It's got a bad cell or something like that. So this thing, we're not saying that you're never gonna have to replace, but if something were to pop up, it would get taken care of right there on the spot. It wouldn't be one of those things where we come back in 20 years and then replace that.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, you, and the reference you just made was the phones. They don't even last 5 years. I mean,
Yeah, that's because it's a consumerism. They're meant for you to go and buy a new one. We're building these things to
And I
last.
understand that part too, but I
Yeah.
also understand with the technology and all, there's none of them out there that last 20 years right now.
That's because they want you to buy a new phone every couple of years.
It's not
So
just the phone,
it's everything. Yeah, they want you to buy everything a couple of new years. They want you to buy rechargeable batteries a couple of new years. They want you to buy a new car every couple of new years. That's why everything is made the way that it is
you go
to,
to 205.
we don't build this for consumers to like, you know what I mean? So this is gonna be built to last.
But if you go to 205, you're saying in 20 years, you're still gonna be at 200. So you're not even gonna lose a percent.
I think
I'm
you're
not
gonna,
exactly sure what the exact overbuild that we're considering is. However, that's factored in by pre-construction
Okay,
on.
then, so
the
what
actual
percentage do you think you'll lose over the 20 years? Since you
I-
can't answer the other.
I don't know.
We'd have to get with Rich on that one.
Yeah.
Rich is the project developer for this one. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, he's out. He's expecting his newborn any day now, so he wasn't able to come. I'm filling in for him, so I'm not sure of the exact overbuild on this exact project. But EJ could write that down and get that over.
and I can get that to you, but it doesn't change the fact that we have to produce 200 megawatts of power. So we're contractually, if we're not producing that, we're in default. It doesn't matter if it's year 1 or year 19. So the degradation doesn't, it's really kind of a moot point. It doesn't matter if it's 40% degradation, 60% degradation, 70% degradation, because you're never gonna know it because we're gonna go in and change it before it ever impacts the project, if that makes sense. Yes, sir.
Where do you guys put your wasted batteries?
Yeah, so right now, it's basically mostly glass and precious metal. Oh, that's, I just did my solar panel thing. You do that. I'm sorry, I just gave you a solar panel thing. He'll do the battery one.
Perfect. Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Where do you guys actually send it? Like you say that you.
So the practice right now, is that these batteries would be, recycled and they'd be turned into replace the cells, repaired, and then reused for future projects. So they would go to a plant that specialty is to recycle the battery and use it for other batteries.
So you know how we were talking about early on about how some countries, they don't have the same regulation standards that we do? There's a business model now where we ship them over to countries that they'll take the 80%, the 75% battery. So that's the model. Yeah. And we're starting to see recycling. I was gonna say solar, but we're starting to see recycling plants pop up around solar and storage facilities as well, because it's a big issue coming up and we do need to address it eventually. So, yes, ma'am.
I missed the beginning. And when I came in, did I hear you speaking of an employee there on site?
Yeah, we'll have
Oh, and the rest of the question is, how many employees, how many hours will they cover, and will it be 24/7?
yeah, so this is gonna be remotely monitored 24/7. I believe there's gonna be 1 to 2 full-time on-site employees, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So
Yeah, typically, I mean, there's about 60 construction jobs. There's an actual calculator. that
Yeah, we have an
has
actual like
size.
calculation versus how many megawatts relate to jobs, but full-time equivalent jobs.
I'm just thinking
Yeah,
of
what-
safety.
Oh, safety? Yeah,
Yeah.
1 to 2.
There'd be somebody coming in, checking on, maintaining, checking, doing tests on them. studying.
Monitoring them. It's
Weekly
monitored
tests, yeah.
24 hours a day, 7 days. a
And
week.
that's remotely.
Yeah,
But there are people that will be driving in on F-150s, typically just coming to monitor the battery on a weekly, monthly basis.
but they're dedicated to this project.
So, and you did say something would be like switched right away if it were going wrong, so what do you monitor it remotely and then you send someone out?
Those detection systems could cut it off instantly.
Yeah.
From the
They turn
remote
it off.
monitor.
From the remote monitor, there's like a stop button. So like on my solar plants, actually, there's like literally a button, like you run over to and you hit stop and I don't know why you need it, but like there's literally a button, like you hit stop. So they have that, it's, I don't know if it's that dramatic for the storage, but it's essentially the same thing, you know, remotely, all this stuff. Cause guys, like $100 to $200 million is what we're gonna put into this. We're not messing around, like we can't be lazy, you know what I mean? We have to make sure we're on our top of our game for this stuff, because it's a huge investment. It's a large capital influx and we pay all of it ourselves. So we want to make sure we're doing the best project possible. Yes, sir.
Well, once your batteries are up and running, are they gonna be constantly 24/7, either charging or delivering power? Or do they have a rest period?
Yeah, there'll be a rest period. It'll be on the utilities and MISO's order on when they are being charged and discharged. There'll be periods when they don't need to be charged or discharged, but typically, they'll be charging, and then once they reach a limit of full charge, they're gonna stop charging and they'll discharge when it's needed. As the grid goes and as the price of, if there's spikes, in price and volatility and, the demand's not where, there's more demand than, needed, they discharge to meet the demand and balance out that load.
So when they're resting, whether it's winter or summer, they still have to be kept at a certain temperature.
Yeah, the
Are
HVAC's
they gonna
always
use
running.
their own power to do that?
Yes.
Yep.
So there's some of that power.
So it's always
given
gonna
to the
have a
grid.
certain amount of power in the batteries. They'll always have something in them, and that's for just to maintain the system's power.
But yeah, but it won't, it's not gonna be like just sitting there plugged in, picture it as your phone, can't be plugged in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It won't be charging, it'll be plugged in, but it won't be charging.
It'll have a certain amount of charge, but it won't be discharging it. It uses a certain amount of electricity, to stay powered. It has to keep that. In order to stay running.
And that's your own electricity, because we do get power outages here occasionally.
And that's
So
what our
you're
battery will help.
independent of
We ain't gonna
that?
get them anymore.
I don't know about that.
I wouldn't say that.
I know, I'm not committing to that, I'm not committing to that.
Yeah.
All right, if there's a reporter in here, I did not commit to. No, but it will help address those issues that do cause.
But the facility won't be vulnerable to our local power outages.
So it's charging off of your power system. I mean, whatever is in the batteries at the time. And it shows that they have 80% charge and the rest of the grid is out. They can discharge and they'll put that load onto the grid and it could possibly turn your lights back on.
Oh, that's what you meant. Oh, yeah, 100%. That's why we're
Well, I
there.
meant for your monitoring
Yeah.
system to always be.
Yeah, it'll always be
monitored.
running 24/7. It'll always have power to it. Yeah. I misunderstood your question, but yeah,
So
And
there'll
that's-
never be a time when the cooling or doesn't.
exactly. That thing will never be just sitting there dead,
Okay.
like not, yeah, so.
It'll always be energized.
Yep. And it has to be for all, like the HVAC and all the monitoring systems and all that. And if it's not, we get an alert immediately, so we'll know, you know what I mean? And remember, if you question, if we care, it's a business and we get paid for this stuff, so we do care. Yes, sir.
Some of your other projects, how much is it devalued, local property?
Yeah, there's actually been a couple studies done by some universities. I believe it was. Oh my God, I don't want to give you the wrong study. I can send it over to you, but essentially we haven't seen any decrease in property values because that has been a question. There's actually been an intern, and this isn't scientific, so don't quote me on this, but there has been a part where we've seen some land value increases due to the values of the land going up because one, this land is gonna spike through the roof once we put everything on it and your township comes in and reassesses. But then two, these projects are going up all over the country. So in California, if you own some acreage and some land out there, your land's a lot more valuable today than it was before a lot of these renewable projects were going in because there's just not, the land constraints are a huge issue. So getting that land is tough to go. So it's just driving the value up. But that's not scientific in any way. I can share with you the study. I think it was from UCLA. I don't know if that'll matter to you or not, but they did do a couple different states and they studied it for like the last year because that was a question. And I need to know that too, because if there is, then we need to address it. But as of right now, there does not seem to be an impact.
What's the address of the property again? That you're 50th Street. 50th Street?
Yeah, I apologize. I don't know it off the top of my head.
50th and 24th. We're 50th and 24th.
Little farmhouse on the west side of the road, right on the power lines, almost.
And across the street is a very lovely lady who has more experience than I think all of us in this room. And then her son or her daughter and her son-in-law, they live right next door. And those, we've talked to them. They're 100% fine with their project. If they sell their property, I promise you that they're going to get a lot more for market than they would before our project was there. So.
You guys are buying it?
Oh, I'm just saying.
What's that?
I'm just saying.
You're buying it?
No, we're not buying.
Well, you think their property would be more valuable after the project?
I think so.
I think you're crazy.
Okay.
I agree with it. I don't think it will. Who would want to go out in the country and they're right in their face? And that noise, the 65 decibels, the noise is
Yeah.
just, it's gonna be 24/7.
Yeah, it's comparable to, I guess, have you ever been next to a substation? That
Yeah,
slight hum.
it's 65 decibels. A train going, you stand next to
That's
the
not a
train,
train.
85.
A train is not 85 decibels.
You look it up.
That's kind of like us talking right now. It's the similar sound. That would be pretty
Train going by is
It's
85.
120.
120.
65 decibels is twice as loud as 55.
What's that?
65 decibels is twice as loud as 55.
I think the same holds true for 75 and 85 and 95 as well.
It goes up by.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about.
It goes up every time. So
Roughly.
is it 55 or is it 70?
I don't just.
It's a range.
I've always heard, prior to this, I worked in motorcycle advocacy, sort of like gingerman, so noise studies were always part of my job, and yeah, I was always under the impression it's roughly every 10 decibels is about a double.
No,
Yeah.
so it's exponential.
Yes.
So is it gonna be 55 or is it gonna be 70?
It's a range between 55 and 70, depending on which machinery we use and the final design of the project. This is measured at the property line. So once again, the property line, which if any of you are on our property, you're trespassing. So, that means you walk through woods and everything like that to get to our property. So if it's 55 decibels, 70 decibels at our property line, why are you at our property line? That's the question. Are you there because you want to be bothered by the project? Or are you there because you're scoping it out? I don't know any reason why anyone would be on our property at 50, to begin with. Now, if anybody has any questions about driving down the road and hearing it, you're not going to hear it. You're just not going to hear it. You can believe you're going to hear it as much as you want. It doesn't make it true. You're just not going to hear it. I don't know how many, I wish if there was one thing I could get through to everybody is this is not a train. The train was 120 decibels, by the way. I just Googled it. So
Is that the horn or the train?
I don't know.
That's the difference.
Okay. Well, it's not as loud as as loud as the storage is, I guess what I'm thinking. So you guys don't have to worry about that or anything like that. But that doesn't mean I don't want to still talk with you folks about this. One thing I did tell Jason is because of the concern for the noise and everything, and we hear you and we get it. We have gone back to our battery, to one of the potential battery manufacturers, and asked them to do some studies on their batteries to produce how much noise they'll produce. And basically what we came down to is, and this is not something that I'm saying we're going to do, I'm saying it's something that we're looking into doing, if it's something that we have to do to get the noise down to, fit a certain standard. But, one of the things we're looking at is some sort of sound barrier wall on the property, very similar to like a highway retainer wall. So that blocks the sound from the highways. You wouldn't see this either because we built it behind, we built within the property, behind the vegetated buffers and everything. But that's something that we're considering if for some reason we do this noise study and we're like, oh man, it's not 70 decibels. It's not what we told them it was. We'll do what we got to do to get it where we told you guys it would be. And that'll come right out of our pocket. And I just want to let you guys know that'll cost us like a lot of money, like hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million+ dollars.
I can say that in the draft ordinances that we wrote up that are being reviewed now, we put 55 decibels. We didn't leave it as a range,
Is
so
there,
we gave them a target to hit.
you guys know what the frequency is on the noise itself? Because that makes a difference too.
I don't,
Comparable to an exact, all I can do is compare it to, we'd have to go with our sound engineer to give you the exact
Is it
study
just the
for
fans and compressors for the
an HVAC
For
system.
the
Yes, sir.
HVAC, is that?
And
that's the sound, yeah.
And the only other thing would be a slight hum, which is the thing that is next to, if you go stand by an electrical substation, they hum.
Right.
Yeah.
But this
That's
is a
it.
much bigger scale.
No, it's the same thing. It's utility scale substation. That's what we're building.
But the substations we hear.
The hum's
we
coming
go
from,
around are a lot smaller than this place. is. We don't, the ones we got around here are smaller substations. They're not great big, like for New York City, for big town.
our substation would be about the same size as your normal substation that you got around.
Yeah, that's why I think there's a lot of misconception on this. It's like, we're not building this monstrous like thing that doesn't already exist in your communities. Like, you have substations in your communities right now. You drive past them every day. You just don't notice them because they don't do anything other than sit there and give you electricity. That's what we're gonna do as well. And that's how our project, it'll be, probably in your face the first year. But once construction's done and the vegetation has grown in, it's gonna be hard to know it's really there. Unless you're going up and down that road and stopping and getting out of your car and looking at it. Yes, ma'am.
It just occurred to me when you were talking about the barrier wall, I was thinking of deer. And then I thought, we have a lot of hunters in our community.
Yeah.
Like Pennsylvania and everywhere else. People out here, they hunt.
Yeah.
And, do you have something protective? I know there are steel containers, but then I'm thinking, I don't know how far away your property is from property somebody might be on legally on.
Yeah.
And say they missed the deer and the bullet keeps going. How are you protected from that?
Yeah, they are in steel containers, so that gives us a pretty good level of protection. We would obviously have postings, no hunting, things of that nature. We don't want to encroach on people's, private hunting spaces and things like that. And I don't think we would be because this would technically be our land.
Are you gonna fence it though? Like-
The
It's got a vegetative buffer surrounding.
The whole property itself will have a vegetative buffer, so trees basically all around the property itself.
How big is that?
But then the storage facility itself will have a 6-foot chain, 6-foot fence, barrier fence to prevent folks from getting into it. And these things are treated just like any other kind of energy producing. If you attack it, it's considered like an attack on the US government, even though it's not.
Well,
You know what
I
mean? It's like attacking
understand that, but it's happened, people have done.
Oh,
things like
100%,
that
yeah.
intentionally. But I'm thinking of a true accident.
Yeah, it's just stray
Somebody,
bullet or something.
somebody hunting, there's
Yeah.
a lot of land around there and I don't know, I'm not a hunter, so I don't know how powerful the guns can be or anything, but
There's always a
maybe they
possibility.
could go a long way and I thought your idea with the walls, it maybe is a good one.
Yeah, no, it definitely could happen, I think that steel barrier definitely prevents, I'm a gun owner. I don't know, I don't got any 50 cals or anything like
I was
that.
gonna say, don't quote me
Yeah.
on this, I'm a mild hunter, but I don't believe it's legal to use a rifle to hunt down in this area, and
Oh, okay.
a rifle would be the only type of.
Yes, you can.
The bigger
A what, a
issue,
muzzle loader
No, you can use a straight wall cartridge rifle.
the bigger issue that
below,
yes, you can't. They changed that in the last.
You
five
can't.
years.
That
But
law changed about 4 years ago.
the bigger thing is that when you're hunting, yeah, you can call it an accident, but then you're big time liable for the damage.
Yeah, I think it was just like hitting someone's house,
It-
Yeah.
Yeah, if you shoot at.
You're
a
being
deer and hit a
irresponsible.
person,
Yeah,
That's manslaughter,
Yeah,
like,
but-
it's not.
Right, but that doesn't undo the
But a house
accident.
has-
Yeah, but we
That's all I'm
have,
saying.
yeah, but we'll have
It just made
somebody,
me think, yeah, more
Yeah.
safety.
and if it were to happen, that monitoring system would be in place so that, oh man, something just happened on, box 13, let's go check it out, and they'd be able to figure it out right away,
So we're
so.
not coming through trying to clear a bunch of trees. I mean, if there's trees that already are a natural barrier that's protecting it already and are thick enough to cover.
Yeah, I don't know.
Stop a
You're
bullet.
gonna need some
They-
Neo type
they can
precision to
stay.
get through all those trees and around and everything, so. But yeah, I get what you're saying, but yeah, and it happens in solar fields, we have panels getting caught by a bullet and stuff, and our solar fields are monitored the exact same way as these. Panel 553 just went out. Let's go out there, get on your golf cart right out there, see what's going on with the panel, replace the panel right there on the spot. So it would be the same way with our batteries. If for some reason it did penetrate and broke one of the cells, we'd be able to go right in there and replace it.
I think what people don't really understand, or maybe they can't get the concept. You can't protect. Every what if that might happen.
Yeah.
There's no way you can do it.
It was the same for your house, yeah.
You can do the best you can with what you have to work with at the time.
Yes, sir.
And that
Yeah,
it's
and
impossible.
I mean, a bullet could hit your house. I'm saying, yeah. It's possible. Everything's possible.
And our projects have the same, we run into the same possibilities as a oil and gas project, a natural gas project, a nuclear project, a wind project. We're producing electricity. When you're dealing with high voltage and stuff, it's dangerous. So things can happen. But as long as, we work with you and your fire safety teams to make sure that everybody is on the same page, we feel good about the way that this is gonna roll out. Reality is guys, like, I'm not trying to get like Captain America or anything, but like India, China, they've all embraced this kind of technology and they're like leading on this stuff. That's the reason why we can't get this stuff built in America and why I gotta go over to China or go over to Southeast Asia to get this stuff is because we get so much pushback from folks on it for some reason. But the reality is like we can lead as a nation producing this electricity, this generation, this energy. We can create more jobs by creating this new manufacturing stream for these solar panels and for these storage containers. Now, Michigan, I mean, you guys are like the greatest manufacturing state in our country, you know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why a lot of this is happening in your state is because I think that a lot of your elected officials see the economic potential for it in regards of jobs and stuff like that. But I don't know, I'm not trying to get political or anything like that, so that's not what I'm here for. I'm just saying, this is an opportunity for us to lead on this. We've always led when it came to oil and gas and Marcellus shale and fracking. This is electricity, you know what I mean? There's jobs in it and there's money in it. And if we do it right, it can be good for everybody.
But actually, we live out in the middle of nowhere where there's not a lot going on and we like it that way. That is our problem with politics.
Well, the nice thing
Well
is
said,
there won't be
Amanda.
much
We
going
like
on
our-
afterwards when this thing is built, except for more tax revenue for you to pave your streets and turn on your lights and to not raise your
The
taxes.
idea for the
So-
the screen barrier. I want you to see it. We don't want it to be a hybrid. That's our main concern. We don't want you to be burdened by something that you don't like. So we're gonna try to, I guess, our best vegetative screen.
That was-
We
And-
just got all the roads.
And all of those roads will be exactly the way they are when we're done.
We
And
built
you're
it into
gonna-
the ordinance. We put it in the ordinance.
Yeah, that's a commitment. We're not gonna come in here and destroy your roads. Trust me, I gotta live with what the oil and gas industry did before in every community that I go into, because we're coming into places that are typically power producing communities. And I hear that every single time. Bad deals where they screwed over the landowner and then they came in and they tore up our roads and our infrastructure and they left us hanging.
The environment.
Yep, so trust me. I know I can't do it because you guys are already onto it. You know what I mean? Like they already did all of the things. So we're gonna make sure that we address all those things early on and we don't do any of those things. Not trying to paint me out. I know I'm over here like trying to paint us out like we're perfect. We're not. I'm not saying that we will be perfect, but we do want to be a partner. We want to be a business that's coming to your community, investing in your community. And we do want to, we want to do our best to fit in.
Which hedge fund owns Vesper?
Multiple. So Magnetar Capital is invested in us. Wagner, Elgin River, You're seeing a lot of private equity firms get into this industry because it's such good business. So anytime anyone says, I don't understand why you can't make any money, the billionaires, they see us making money in it and they're investing all their money into us. So, you know, the Elon Musks, the Donald Trumps of the world, they see this as a money-making venture. So they're taking their personal investments and they're investing in companies like us because we can give them a bigger return than other places to invest their money.
You're really not selling a product.
Selling electricity.
You're taking the electricity off the line, you're not producing it, you're taking it off the line and selling it back at a higher rate.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Okay, all that's no different than a casino bringing in money and.
it's just like selling water. It's just
But
like
it's
selling
not-
water, you know what I mean?
it's
We're
not
collecting the
affecting-
electricity and we're giving it to,
There's nothing green about this, nothing renewable, it's nothing, it's no different than my car battery.
It's not, it's a grid multi-tool. It's to strengthen the
But
grid.
my car battery charges while I'm running it and I use it to start my car.
and then you go,
Same thing.
and then you charge it again, right?
Yes.
And use it
Same
again,
thing. I said it's the same thing.
renew, charge.
My car's never been dedicated as renewable energy.
Yeah, because it's never been powered with, you know, solar or wind or hydro or anything like that.
You're powered by.
This
You're
specific,
powered by whatever's on that grid.
Correct.
Correct,
There's
yeah.
an excessive amount of electricity that's
And
not
right
being
now,
used,
there's nothing.
and it's
on
being
that grid
wasted.
except
So we charge our batteries with that excess energy.
Nuclear and the coal and.
you understand, like, there's electricity that just goes to
I understand
waste, right?
Much about electricity.
So that electricity that goes to the waste, you don't get any money for, you lose money as a business. You're producing it, but you're not selling it. So we are coming in and we're saving that money from them. They're no longer wasting it. They're selling it to us. Before they got 0 cents. Now they get whatever cents we pay for them. And that's the business model. So we buy the electricity from them that they would have never sold in the first place because who are they going to sell it to? And then we take that, and when the need for the electricity is back, we sell it back.
So they don't have to produce more.
And they don't have to produce more. They don't have to keep on ramping up to produce the lost energy that they have. That's where we fit in this equation, is electricity does not just get stored on the grid. It doesn't sit in the lines. It just goes into the ground and it's gone. So we're preventing it from being gone.
So you buy it from consumers? Is that, or is it someone else
Whoever
who has the
the-
power on that line?
I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the entity is, but yeah, the line that whoever manages that line, we have a.
And then they might buy it back from you because it wasn't. Because.
No, they will buy-
it's their way to capture it.
No, they will buy it back for us. With their, whoever it is, we'll strike up a contract. Someone way smarter than me will do it. They'll run the numbers. And someone from their business and from our business, they'll come to an agreement, and that'll be the deal.
Power purchase agreement.
Power
One of
purchase.
these is going in cold water and they just, they signed by, I think, a 20-year agreement
Yeah, that's typically what
with,
we see.
consumers.
Yeah, we
20-year power
typically
purchase
see,
agreement.
it's a 20-year power purchase agreement. And we always use, for solar projects, we use 40 years as like the life of the project, because the first 20 years, we're already contractually obligated. We know what we're gonna make for 20 years. We got a deal. We know how much it's gonna cost us. We don't have a bunch of overhead because it's just sitting there. And then the second 20 is when we really make a lot of money, because now we're open to the free market. So think of like a NFL free agent. You know, they signed that rookie deal and then they got franchised, and now that first contract's over, the second contract, the second 20 years, they can go out on the market and renegotiate, make more money. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, we got about 10 more minutes. Does anybody have any more questions? And I'll stay and talk for as long as you need me to.
We are actually scheduled till 8:30, so
Oh.
if you want
I
to
thought
go
I
till
said
9,
nine. All right.
it's fine. It's
Oh,
fine.
they had said 9.
Yeah, I put
Did
it
it?
on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 7 to 9, so.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. If anybody wants to talk to me, come grab my card, ma'am. Last time I think you had some questions, but you didn't give me your info, so I could never respond to you. And just so you know, I asked Jason, that was who I was talking about.
Yes.
When I texted you.
I emailed.
Okay,
Rich.
you did get a hold of
He said
him.
he'd get back to me and he never did.
Okay,
And
well, that's,
think
I
maybe it's
let
the baby, but yes.
me get with you then and we'll talk. 'Cause I actually,
In fairness, he
He's supposed
said,
to be
who
here.
was the lady sitting wherever, and I couldn't pinpoint who he was talking about. If I would have known it was you, I'd have easily been able to connect you to.
yeah, so I
Okay,
did
I
reach
know who
out,
you're talking
just so you know, I asked Jason, so, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You guys, the people that were sitting here, are people that are next door, you said, right?
Mhm.
Did they receive any compensation to?
We're not, I mean, I can't talk about anybody's private business. That's
You can't
something
say
you're.
whether they received any compensation. I didn't say how much. I said, did they receive?
That's something, I'm sure you wouldn't want me talking about your personal business with anybody, no matter what it would be.
I think they did, and that's why.
I'm sure you could probably ask them and knock on the door if you want.
So is that an option for the other Jason?
It all depends on, what you guys want to talk about and everything. I can't sit here and tell you other people's deals, whether someone got something, whether someone didn't get something.
I didn't ask
So in this
Surely
industry,
you can't think that he is required to disclose that.
I didn't ask if what he paid or what he did. I just asked if there was a compensation to him. That's all I asked.
Well, even that question, even he doesn't have to disclose.
These contracts have a non-disclosure portion.
Then don't sit here and tell me they have not got a problem with it. They got compensated.
Was it their
That's a big
property
difference.
prior? Was it their property prior?
No,
Who was getting compensation for what?
You want now?
Was it their property prior to them moving in? No, they're gonna be next door to them. Would you want compensation if your neighbor built a house on his property
It's not a house.
next to you? Would you?
It's
It's
not a
the
house.
same deal.
It's not a house.
Okay,
I didn't say I wanted compensation. I asked if they did.
what difference does it make?
There's a big difference when you say they don't have a
Because
problem.
you didn't get it.
Asked and answered. Asked and answered. Any other
Just-
questions to wrap up?
So,
Yeah.
little contract.
Any other questions to wrap up? So, do you have cards?
I do, yeah, let me grab
Okay,
one out of my
if
bag.
you have more questions that you think of, email EJ. As he mentioned, Rich is the project manager. He's gonna be out on baby duties. I think his wife is due like right now. If you have questions about the planning commission, please email me. My email is very easy to remember. It's trustee2@columbiatwp.com. So, are there any questions about just the planning commission or the board or anything like that I can answer now? Of course, absolutely. I was the one that organized these open houses. Excuse me?
Them represent us.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to talk to you about that.
Jason, I have a
Yes.
word. Like, are you guys going to start talking about?
I have a meeting, on Friday with somebody from the Southwest Michigan Economic Development. To talk about, try to understand how the tax.
Is,
He is.
oh, okay. It doesn't look like they fit under the law that I, you know, what I mean, but maybe there's another one.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's what I found. Well, I was just trying to understand, looking at law, laws, I guess for taxing. And I just thought maybe, I've never had anyone who's got you know what I mean? Yeah, so went on the board, passed the bar. No, they think they, I don't, they haven't.
I agree.
Because it might end up where it needs to go to Catherine. So everywhere I look, I'm seeing this happening, solar, I'm seeing it, battery facility, not just our state, everywhere, but they're showing you some like. In some states, they work a little differently, but I'm doing too much reading on it. You know what I mean? I mean, so in Ohio, they actually do like, it's almost like. It's like NPSC, but it's called Columbia University in Ohio, and you're actually giving testimony when you go there. But you know, so I read the testimony of the sound engineer, how they came about with the system. Now, I'm not learning a lot about law, but just reading the common sense that claimed public access in Michigan. It doesn't look like they applied. I'm really not in favor of responsibility. Because 20 years from now, they do. decided not to go forward with the technology changes. I really don't want factory or some other kind of industrial. It's a bad idea. It's not that I don't believe that we need to. Yes, but you know, when it's your own backyard, this is going in by your house, not in by us in the ag district. And I know you would have to be. That would be it. So we have to start chopping. Spot zoning and especially after. It's like, crap on scopes. They call that watershed stuff. That would like really make me feel. That's good. Because it's, yeah, I don't believe it's required to be able to, I think that you guys can come to some agreement without doing that, or without using the same law that was used to give the abatement over there for the blueberry trees. That was very, they were manufacturing, they were providing jobs, all of that, so they fit. This wasn't fit, but I'm sure there's no law that will stop it. There's that access thing. So that's an agreement where you guys decide how much it makes. Then I just want to guys. Negotiators. It's much this is the only time. Without rezoning. Because they got special.
$700,000 a year.
Yeah, I don't understand. Put into a little those things are. That's how it goes with anything. I believe they probably only paid because they were. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, it's not lies. Because the way things run. And I don't agree. It should, because should there be a fight or somebody? That would be the ones really.
My joke is that
But.
yeah. Everybody's.
But you're all in. Look at all the same, but anymore. They are very.
I live But other than that, everybody's.
I know it's a corner. So I think it's out. It's where we're gonna make. But right by the Black Sun and the Black River. And I was like. The picture. So I have a question for you, Mr. Texas.
Yes.
My son and grandson are both. And my son is, they're working on their hearing. And they, most of the, but for some reason I ended up in Texas. And working Oda and weird places like that. But, so I had asked Rich, well, they get there. I had asked Rich in the last meeting, I want to go see one of these actually built. And there's a 1 gigawatt in Kalamazoo, I don't want to see that if it's clear. Megawatt, whatever, it's a little baby. Project, and you can't get close enough to it anyway. I want to stand a block away from you, and I want to be able to not be able. I want to be able to talk along the neighbors. I stood a block away from this thing now, because if I can hear it when I'm like several blocks away still, I can find one in the country. Because you know, like the city, I'm always gonna be able to. Then I have some my house. Because that's what people do out here, is to be quiet, so. Places and things, I'm hoping I'm hoping that I'm gonna do all the wiring and come home and say, you know, just say, maybe it's all right, you spent all weekend, so we'll be able to say, yeah, but that's all right, honey, no, you don't want me to stay here. So what I wanted to do is we never got that to me, and I'm thinking maybe it's the so I did or whatever, there's gonna be mail goes on the Bible, because we know what. Okay, then, okay. That's why this was right after the last.
Okay, yes, we feel that.
So I. Finance that are slated for operation this year, 2024. But I can't find that's afraid.
Shut it off.
I'm gonna guess like.
They say where they're at, or just like not searching hard enough myself.